Felina. Felina is simultaneously an anagram of finale and a reference to the country song El Paso by Marty Robbins, which Walter listens to in the stolen car. In the song, a cowboy returns to his beloved Felina, knowing he will die, exactly as Walter returns to his first love, chemistry and the laboratory. The title works on 3 levels: Fe, arrain, Li, lithium, and Na, sodium, chemical elements that, when combined, can be lethal. Vince Gilligan confirmed this was no coincidence, but a deliberate choice to show that Walter was returning to his scientific roots for the final act. The song El Paso plays for exactly 2 minutes and 37 seconds in the episode, the same time it takes Walter to die after being shot. This synchronization was not accidental. The editing team worked meticulously so that Walter's death would coincide with the end of the song, creating perfect poetic symmetry between fiction and reality. The choice of song also had personal meaning for Vince Gilligan, who grew up listening to Marty Robbins with his father. The director revealed he had always imagined Breaking Bad ending with a country song, representing Walter's return to his American origins. Curiously, the music rights cost over $500,000 for the production, but Gilligan considered it essential for the series' closure. 737 Down Over ABQ. The titles of the 4 second season episodes, when read in sequence, form the phrase 737 Down Over Albuquerque, one of the series' most elaborate prophecies. The writing team planted this clue 6 months before the season finale, knowing that only the most obsessive fans would notice. The number 737 wasn't chosen randomly, it's the exact Boeing model that collided over Albuquerque. The production team consulted aviation experts to ensure all technical details of the accident were accurate, including the aircraft type and collision altitude. ABQ is Albuquerque's official airport code, but also functions as an abbreviation for Albuquerque in official FAA documents. The choice to use the airport code instead of the city's full name was deliberate to give a more technical and official tone to the tragedy, as if it were an actual aircraft accident report. What makes this prophecy even more impressive is that the team created a fake NTSB, National Transportation Safety Board website with complete accident details, including real flight numbers that were later removed from circulation by the FAA. Fans discovered the site months before the final episode, but most thought it was just viral marketing. The sequence of the pink bear falling into the pool was filmed using a real teddy bear that was burned in a controlled manner 47 times until they achieved the perfect effect. Each fall cost approximately $15,000 in special effects. Ozymandias. The name Ozymandias wasn't chosen randomly. It's a direct reference to Percy Bysshe, Shelley's 1818 sonnet about an arrogant king whose empire completely crumbled. The poem speaks of a destroyed statue in the desert with the inscription, "Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair," exactly what happens to Walter White in this episode. Vince Gilligan revealed they had known since the 2nd season that this would be the title of the series' climactic episode. The writing team had a framed copy of the poem in the writer's room as a constant reminder of Walter's fate. The verse, "Nothing beside remains," perfectly echoed the moment when Walter loses his family, his money, and his identity. The episode was filmed in the same New Mexico desert where Shelley imagined the ruins of Ozymandias' kingdom. The scene of Walter rolling the money barrel through the arid vastness is the perfect visual materialization of the poem, a powerful man reduced to nothing, pushing the wreckage of his empire through the infinite desert. What few know is that Bryan Cranston memorized the complete poem during filming and would recite it between takes to maintain the correct emotional state. The sound crew accidentally captured one of these recitations, which almost was included as an Easter egg in the episode. Additionally, the episode was filmed in just 3 days, but the actors' emotional preparation took weeks, and a gun even went to therapy to deal with the intensity of the family confrontation scenes. Face Off. Face Off works on 2 levels. Literally, half of Gus's face is blown off by the explosion. Figuratively, it's the final confrontation between Walter and his greatest adversary. The title was kept in absolute secrecy during filming. Only Bryan Cranston and Giancarlo Esposito knew what it really meant. The explosion scene was filmed with a $250,000 facial prosthetic created specifically for Giancarlo Esposito. The special effects team studied real videos of explosion victims to create the most realistic visual possible, but had to tone down the result to avoid television censorship. The moment when Gus adjusts his tie before collapsing took 47 takes to film. Giancarlo Esposito had to remain motionless for minutes while the crew adjusted the prosthetic and fake blood. He later revealed that he used meditation techniques to maintain composure during the most intense filming. The facial prosthetic was so realistic that several crew members became sick during filming. Giancarlo Esposito had to wear special contact lenses that left him practically blind on the exploded side, forcing him to memorize every movement with millimetric precision. The actor revealed that the experience was so intense that he had nightmares for weeks after filming. 5. Phoenix. Phoenix is a cruel irony. Jane Margolis dies in this episode, but unlike the mythological bird, she doesn't rise from the ashes. The title also references the city of Phoenix, Arizona, where Jane planned to flee with Jesse using the methamphetamine money. Krysten Ritter, who played Jane, didn't know her character would die until she received this episode's script. Vince Gilligan personally called her to explain the decision and ensure she understood the narrative importance of Jane's death for Walter's transformation. Jane's death scene was filmed in a single, continuous 8-minute take. Bryan Cranston had to remain motionless, watching Krysten Ritter simulate overdose and asphyxiation, an experience he described as emotionally devastating. The crew maintained absolute silence on set during the entire filming. The apartment where Jane dies was built specifically to allow cameras to capture all angles of the tragedy. Krysten Ritter practiced the death sequence for 2 weeks with a special effects specialist to make the asphyxiation as realistic as possible without being dangerous. The actress revealed that the experience was so intense that she avoided watching the episode for years. Crawlspace. Crawlspace literally refers to the space under the house where Walter hides the money, but symbolically represents the psychological hole he has fallen into. The title suggests something claustrophobic and underground, exactly where Walter's mind was at that moment. Walter's maniacal laughter at the end of the episode wasn't in the original script. Bryan Cranston improvised the reaction after discovering the money was gone, and Vince Gilligan found it so perfect that he kept it in the final version. That laughter represented the exact moment when Walter White finally went completely insane. The scene was filmed with Bryan Cranston actually lying in a 1.5-meter deep hole dug in the set. He spent 6 hours in that position during filming, and the real claustrophobia he felt helped create the intensity of the performance. The crew had to use fans to ensure he had enough air. Bryan Cranston developed a temporary phobia of enclosed spaces after this experience, needing therapy to overcome it. The laughter he emits at the end was so disturbing that Anna Gunn, who was on set, began crying thinking Bryan had actually gone insane. The sequence was filmed 23 times, and each take lasted approximately 12 minutes, totaling almost 5 hours of Bryan lying in the hole. Salud. Salud means health in Spanish, but is pronounced as a toast before drinking, a devastating irony considering that Gus poisons the entire Mexican cartel in this episode. The title transforms a word of celebration into a harbinger of death. Giancarlo Esposito studied Spanish intensively for 3 months for the Mexico scenes. He wanted Gus's accent to be perfect to show that the character was truly bilingual, not just an American trying to speak Spanish. Each word was rehearsed dozens of times. The party scene was filmed in a real mansion in Albuquerque that was transformed to look like a Mexican property. The production brought 200 extras, all instructed to act as if they were at a real party. Many didn't know they were filming a mass poisoning scene until they saw the finished episode. The tequila used in the scene was real, but was replaced with colored water during takes where the actors actually drank. Giancarlo Esposito had to take anti-nausea medication before filming because the smell of the liquid used to simulate vomit made him genuinely sick. The pool where Gus vomits was drained and refilled 12 times during filming to keep the water crystal clear for the cameras. Box cutter. Box cutter refers to the tool Gus uses to cut Victor's throat, but symbolically represents the definitive cut between Gale's era and the new reality with Walter and Jesse. The title suggests something mundane transformed into a lethal weapon, a central theme of Breaking Bad. Victor's murder scene was considered so intense that AMC initially requested cuts. Vince Gilligan had to argue that the violence was essential to establish Gus as a real threat. The final version was a compromise between artistic vision and television standards. Jeremiah Bitsui, who played Victor, didn't know he would be killed until 2 weeks before filming. He had to sign a confidentiality agreement not to reveal his character's fate. The makeup team took 4 hours to create the throat-cutting effect, using prosthetics and fake blood. The box cutter used in the scene was real, but with a retracted blade replaced by a rubber version for close-up shots. Giancarlo Esposito practiced the cutting movement for weeks to make it fluid and terrifying. The set cleanup crew took 3 hours to remove all the fake blood after each take, and the smell of the liquid used remained in the laboratory for days. Tuhajiili. Tuhajiili is the real name of a Navajo indigenous reservation in New Mexico, where Walter hides his money. The title in Navajo language means place where water is drawn up, but ironically becomes the place where Walter's empire is buried forever. The production had to obtain special permission from the Navajo Nation to film on the reservation. Tribal leaders initially hesitated due to the drug content, but agreed when they understood that the series showed the negative consequences of crime. Part of the episode's profits was donated to the reservation's educational programs. The name was kept secret during production. In preliminary scripts, the episode was called only Episode 513. Bryan Cranston admitted he had to practice the correct pronunciation for weeks, and even then needed several attempts during filming to say the name properly. The Tohajiili Reservation has deep spiritual meaning for the Navajo people, being considered a sacred place where ancestors communicate with the living. During filming, the crew had to follow strict cultural respect protocols, including purification ceremonies before and after recording. Peekaboo. Peekaboo functions as a cruel irony. While the child plays hide and reveal with their face, Jesse is being forced to peek at a reality he would like to be able to hide forever. The The title suggests the act of revealing something that should remain hidden, like the human degradation caused by the drugs he sells. The episode uses the children's game as a devastating counterpoint to show how the drug world destroys not only users, but contaminates the innocence around them. The child continues playing peekaboo even surrounded by chaos and violence, representing how innocence persists even in the most toxic environments. The title also reflects Jesse's own experience in the episode. He is literally peeking through curtains and doors, trying to recover the stolen money, but discovering a much darker reality than he expected. Each time he peeks, he reveals a new layer of horror in the addicts' lives. The child who appears in the episode was the son of one of the producers, and his genuine reactions of fear and confusion weren't acted. He was really scared by the chaotic set environment. Aaron Paul improvised most of his interactions with the child, creating moments of real tenderness amid the horror. The house where the episode was filmed was a real property that had been abandoned by addicts, and many of the set objects were real items left by former occupants. Aaron Paul revealed this was one of the most traumatic experiences of his career, and he went to therapy after filming to process the emotions the episode awakened. 1 minute. 1 minute refers to the anonymous phone call that saves Hank from the Salamanca cousins, but also represents how a single minute can completely change the course of a life. The title emphasizes the unpredictable and volatile nature of Breaking Bad's world. The fight sequence between Hank and the cousins was choreographed like a deadly dance. Dean Norris trained for 2 months with combat specialists to make every movement realistic. The scene took 5 days to film, with each angle meticulously planned to maximize tension. The phone call that saves Hank was recorded in Spanish by a production team member who was fluent in the language. The voice was digitally distorted to sound more threatening. Curiously, the exact phrase used in the phone call became a meme among Mexican fans of the series. The parking lot where the fight happens was closed for an entire week for filming. Dean Norris suffered 3 minor injuries during choreography, including a real cut on his forehead that was incorporated into the scene. The actors who played the cousins trained in martial arts for months to execute the movements with precision. The sequence of the axe ricocheting off the asphalt was filmed 67 times until they got the perfect angle. No más. No más means no more in Spanish, echoing Walter's despair after the air tragedy he indirectly caused. The title also reflects the mental state of several characters who have reached the limit of their emotional capabilities. The episode was originally titled Aftermath, but Vince Gilligan changed it to No Más after hearing the phrase in a mariachi song during a trip to Mexico. He felt that Spanish added a layer of cultural authenticity to the series since much of the action takes place on the border with Mexico. The debris scene in the White's Pool was created using a mixture of real airplane parts and replicas made especially for the production. The FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, provided technical consulting to ensure the debris looked authentic. Each piece was positioned to tell a visual story about the magnitude of the tragedy. The pink bear floating in the pool was created using 12 different bears, each burned in a specific way for different camera angles. The pool water had to be treated with special chemicals to create the correct visual effect without damaging the filming equipment.